I got late. This is Chapter 5, December 29th, 2002. On day 5 of the investigation, Detective Grogan began his shift with a telephone call to Lacey's parents, Sharon Rocha and Ron Gratsky. Grogan needed to know more about the couple's missing daughter. He asked them to meet him at noon at Modesto's 10th Street Police Headquarters, about a 5-minute drive from their home on Markley Way. As Grogan worked, a woman named Kim Peterson showed up at the headquarters. No relation to Scott and Lacey Peterson, but was a representative from the Carol Sund Carrington Memorial Reward Foundation, a victims assistance group that was helping the members of Lacey's family cope with the traumatic events. Kim brought with her a videotape she had been given by Lacey's parents. Sharon and Ron wanted to release the footage to the media, but first wanted the official approval. Kim also had some information she wanted to share with the detectives. First, she told the officer that Scott Peterson had requested that no images of him be distributed to the media. Beyond that, in viewing the video herself, she saw some behavior that indicated that Scott Peterson had requested that no images of him be distributed to the media. Beyond that, in viewing the video herself, she saw some behavior that indicated that Scott may not have been that excited about having a child. The three sat down and watched the video together. In one segment dated Christmas Eve 2001, Lacey is seen repeatedly coaxing Scott to hold a friend's baby. Her voice can be heard telling her husband to hold the child for 5 minutes. 1 minute. All right, then 2 minutes. Finally, he relents. An image of Scott cradling the infant shows up on the video, and Scott can be heard saying, "This isn't that much fun." Lacey's voice again is heard in the video. This is your one and only time you'll see him do this," she lamented. Grogan made a note of this in his case file. Kim Peterson had been actively involved in criminal cases since the horrific murder of Carol Sund and her daughter Julie by a serial killer. In February 1999, Carol, Julie, and a young woman named Sylvina Palesso went missing on a trip to Yosemite National Park. Desperate to locate them, Carol Sund's parents, Francis and Carol Carrington, established rewards for any information about the case. The couple was convinced that the reward money and media attention were instrumental in locating their daughter's rental car, the first break in the case. Although the case ended tragically when the woman was found violently murdered, the Carringtons resolved thereafter to help others in similar circumstances. They established the Carol Sund Carrington Memorial Reward Foundation to help families without economic means offer rewards for information that might help the police locate missing loved ones. As executive director of the organization, Kim Peterson might have expected to suspect foul play. Yet it was her experience, coupled with everything she had learned thus far about the case, that made Kim suspicious of Scott Peterson. Later that morning, Grogan met with Lacey's parents. As Sharon sat nervously on the edge of her chair, listening purposefully, the detective probed for more details about their daughter's life, her childhood, through to the day she disappeared. Sharon and Ron had been all over talk shows pleading for news about their missing daughter. The last time Sharon had seen Lacey was on December 15th, nearly 10 days before she disappeared. "Mom, come quick," Lacey had excitedly urged her. "Put your hand on my stomach to feel the baby kick." Sharon rushed over, placing a hand on Lacey's belly. She held it there for a long time, and when she didn't feel anything, she put her ear to her daughter's stomach instead. "Hello, little Connor," she said. "Your Nana loves you. I'm waiting to see you." "We haven't completely decided on Connor yet," Lacey replied. "We're thinking we might name him Logan." "And then there was the last we had talked about it. And then that was the last we had talked about it," Sharon explained. Lacey's parents thought that Lacey and Scott had a good marriage. Even when Scott should have been mad at Lacey, he wasn't, Ron told the detective. The couple had never separated, according to Sharon and Ron, and they had spent up to 90% of their time together. They shared the same goals, including having a child and buying a larger home. Grogan was taking notes. Neither Sharon nor Ron ever heard Scott or Lacey become involved in an argument, raise their voices at each other, or complain about any problems with their relationship, he noted. On the surface, it sounded like the kind of relationship most people dream of having. But human nature rarely affords such perfection. A keen observer might have drawn a different conclusion from Scott's behavior, that he simply wasn't invested, wasn't emotionally involved in his marriage. It's easy enough to do whatever your wife wants, after all, if you just don't care one way or the other. Sharon and Ron were both surprised when Grogan asked them about Scott's boat. Neither of them knew that Scott had purchased a boat or that he had even been thinking about it. They were both visibly upset to hear that Scott had been fishing in this boat the very day that Lacey disappeared. Detective Grogan was back at the headquarters early on December 30th when he received a call from Scott Peterson. Scott wanted the cell phone number to Sergeant Cloward. Grogan said he'd find it and call him back. When he did, the tape recorder was rolling. Grogan gave Scott the number and then asked for the name of the delivery person who had dropped off a parcel at the Peterson home on the morning that Lacey had disappeared. "Oh, sure, hold on, let me dig out that paper." Grogan could hear papers rustling in the background. Russell Graybill." Consulting the receipt, Scott said that the driver had been at the house between 10:35 and 10:50 a.m. "I'll hang on to this until I see you and send someone for it." Grogan then asked about the jewelry Lacey was wearing the morning she disappeared. "She had on diamond earrings, right?" "Yeah." "And she had on a wristwatch that was diamond encrusted?" "I believe so." "Around the side, what's the metal on that though? Is it gold or silver?" I don't know. She had a couple of them, I think." "She has a silver one and a gold one, a couple of gold ones." "She had 2 gold ones?" the detective asks. "I think so." Just as Scott had failed to check for Lacey's purse, shoes, or jacket in the hours immediately following her disappearance, he still was unsure about the jewelry she was wearing. If Lacey had frequently changed her jewelry, of course, this might be understandable. Yet in photographs taken in the weeks before she disappeared, Lacey's jewelry was consistent. The diamond earrings, the Genevieve watch, and her diamond pendant. By this time, her grandmother's expensive ring was already at the jeweler's, being divided into several pieces, including an addition to Lacey's own wedding ring. "What about the dental records?" Grogan asked. He had already asked Scott twice for the name of Lacey's dentist. Scott said he didn't know the name, but knew where the office was and promised to call him with the information. Now, 2 days later, Scott still hadn't bothered. "Oh yeah, I meant to go," he said. "I'll go by there today and get the name of it." "One of the things I noticed when I was at the house is that you like 4 degrees or something up on the wall." Grogan said, "Are all of those yours?" "Well, that was a joke from Lacey," Scott explained. "A running joke because I went to school for so long." The police investigated this joke. They weren't convinced. 3 of the diplomas were phony, including a BA in Religious Studies from Arizona State University, dated June 1st, 1992, and 2 from the University of San Diego, a BS in psychology from June 21st, 1994, and a BS in business dated June 12, 1996. The diplomas were beautifully matted, framed, and displayed in the Peterson home as if they were legitimate. As the police soon learned, they had been ordered on December 16, 2002, from a website called phonydiplomas.com. It was Scott's credit card, not Lacey's, that reflected the $269.85 charge, and Scott's shipping and email addresses that appeared on the order. The diplomas received little attention in the press, yet to me it was obvious that Scott had ordered the diplomas for himself, that they were part of his plan to create a new persona. They wouldn't have fooled Lacey, of course, but others, like Amber Frey, might be deceived. The religious studies diploma, I believe, must have been purchased with Amber in mind. Next, Grogan asked Scott whether Lacey had ever driven Scott's truck. She liked it, Scott told him. Either one of you ever been injured in the truck or anything? You ever had an accident in it? No, never been in an accident. Fine, probably blood climbing in it, but... You know where that was from? The detective interrupted, referring to the blood in the truck that Scott had just mentioned. But I mean, I cut my hands every day. You cut your hand that day? How'd that happen? Grogan asked. I reached in the side pocket in the door. What cut you? Grogan asked. I mean, I know. Alan looked at my hands and I said he noticed cuts on my hands, so he knows. Scott was referring to the first night when Detective Brockney had inspected his hands. What was in there that cut you? I don't know, probably just the door or the pockets or something, he said. He bled slightly. Still, my hands, I keep cutting it, handing out flyers, so that's the reason I keep remembering it. Scott was not making sense. Scott entered injury-fueled police speculation that Lacey scratched him when he was strangling or smothering her. The other drops of blood found on the couple's duvet cover supported this conclusion. As I learned later, one theory police entertained seriously was that Scott had strangled Lacey in the bedroom, lying on her bed out at the foot of the bed where Brockney saw the indentation in the covers. As he was strangling her, Lacey reached up and scratched Scott on the knuckle, causing the tiny blood splatter on the duvet cover near the indentation. Scott could have dripped blood from that cut into the side pocket of his truck when he had transported Lacey's lifeless body, hidden beneath the umbrellas, to the warehouse, where he loaded it up in the boat and covered it with a tarp. As he had with Sharon and Sandy on Christmas Eve, Scott knew he needed to explain how he had cut himself the very next day when Lacey went missing. Since no one knew exactly how it happened, why was he so worried? So you just had a little scuff on your knuckle or something? Yeah, still here. Which hand? The left hand, the index finger. Grogan shifted the subject again. Did Lacey know you had that boat? Of course, Scott retorted. Can't go out and buy something, without telling the wife. Oh, without telling the wife, he says. She's been at the warehouse before? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I had it for a few days before she came and saw it, Scott offered. Can you say the last time she was in there when the last time she was in there was? Grogan asked. It was probably Friday. Just a few days before she disappeared? Yeah, I don't know if she was down there the weekend or not. It's pretty much a common stop for us to go to Home Depot. It's on the way, stop and get tools or whatever, Scott said. So on Friday, did she stop by and have lunch with you or what? No, not lunch on Friday. I remember that. Well, I'm not sure if she did or not. I mean, I know we'd have lunch, but I don't know if she came by to say hi or not. You're not sure if she came by or not? Grogan inquired. No, I think so, but I'm not sure, I don't make a note of it or anything. While he had assured Brockney just days ago that he and Lacey never spoke again when he was at work, now he had them lunching there regularly. Craig, I'm sorry, I've got to go, Scott said. I've got an interview. I'm going to talk to some press here. The call ended abruptly, but there is no record that Scott had an impending interview with any members of the press. At 10:15, Detective Tom Blake gave Grogan a report on the boat purchase. Blake had tracked down the previous owner, a man named Bruce Peterson, again no relation. Peterson told the police that he had run an ad in a local newspaper to advertise his 14-foot Sears aluminum fishing boat with a 15-horsepower outboard motor, a fish finder, and other accessories for $1,500. On Saturday, December 8th, Scott Peterson came by to see the boat. Bruce Peterson told him he had only used it a few times in freshwater. The last time was about 3 months earlier in September. Scott asked a few questions, and then Bruce told Peterson that he would take it for $1,400. The owner wanted cash, and Scott promised to return with the money the following day. Bruce Peterson said he did not show Scott how to start the motor. Scott came back the following day, cash in hand. According to the owner, Scott was polite and gracious throughout the dealings. Later that afternoon, detectives re-examined Scott's boat. They had been unable to start the boat when they first examined it on December 26. Water tests confirmed the presence of salt, indicating that the boat had been used in salt water. Just after 2:30 p.m., police interviewed a woman named Peggy O'Donnell. O'Donnell worked at a business called Adventures in Advertising that was located in the same industrial park as Scott's office on North Emerald. O'Donnell claimed that Lacey Peterson had visited the complex several days before her disappearance, either December 20th or December 23rd, and asked to use the bathroom. O'Donnell's remarks fueled speculations that Lacey may have known about the boat, just as Scott claimed, and that she could have left her hair in the boat when she visited the warehouse that day. Based on the condition of the office when Brockney saw it the first night, police do not believe that Lacey ever entered the warehouse that day. It would have been impossible for her, in her condition, to get to the bathroom area. Pallets of product were stacked floor to ceiling. Even the police had trouble moving about it in the cluttered space. Later on the afternoon of December 30th, Scott called Grogan with the information on Lacey's dentist. When Scott admitted after days of delay that both he and Lacey shared the same dentist, Grogan's eyebrows shot up. Ugh. He listened attentively to Scott as the tape recorder whirled quickly on his desk, capturing a conversation that the public and jury never heard. "Scott, are you there?" Grogan asked. "Yeah." "On the press issue," Grogan began. "Obviously, we've been going to the press conferences." "Obviously, you've been going to the press conferences." "No," Scott responded flatly. "You have not?" Grogan was surprised. "I went to one," Scott explained. All right, the chief's been getting a lot of inquiries since the beginning of this thing about the polygraph. Journalists are asking whether Scott had taken a polygraph examination. I mean, every day they ask him about that, and every day he doesn't really lie, but he doesn't really tell the truth either, Grogan said. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm shook up, Scott said. It's going to make things a little bit uncomfortable, but we're probably going to release... Okay, Scott interrupted. Okay, I wanted to talk to you about that up front and to tell you man to man, because I don't want you to be knocked down by that. I appreciate that, sir. Scott then asked about getting his vehicles back, along with the keys to his house and office. Grogan promised to check with the crime scene investigators about the keys, when he then asked a series of questions about the anchor police found in his warehouse. When you told us that you made a homemade anchor, it looks like you made that right there at the shop. Scott answered in the affirmative. And did you make just one? Yeah. Okay, Grogan sighed. The boat didn't come with one? No, the guy wanted to keep the anvil mushroom, Scott explained. Did Kirk McAllister call you? McAllister was the criminal attorney he'd retained. No, Grogan responded. Okay, I don't mind answering your questions. All right, can you tell me when you made that? When? Yeah. Yeah, Grogan answered. I don't know, Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Maybe somewhere in there, Scott said. Maybe it might have been before that. No, would have been before that because I was in Carmel. It looked to me like you made it in the pitcher. I used a plastic bucket, Scott responded. Okay, and then poured it into the pitcher or something? I just used a little plastic bucket, like a painter's bucket. While the pitcher was quickly located by the officers, the little white painter bucket was never found, nor could Scott explain its absence. Police suspected that Scott had left it on the last anchor and pushed it overboard with Lacey's body. Is that what it was set up in? Yeah, Scott responded. Okay, and just rebar or something on the top? Yeah, exactly. Scott explained that he had placed the rebar in the anchor to use in affixing a rope. Okay, there's chicken wire in your truck, Grogan asked. What was that for? Ah, little trees at my house. See those little stakes I've staked up? Okay. Cat keeps scratching the hell out of them. All right, why was it in your truck? Well, I bought it and had it in the back of the truck, taking it home to put around the trees, Scott told the detectives. Okay, hadn't you put it up yet? No. Scott told Grogan that he had bought the chicken wire at Home Depot about 2 weeks earlier. He had left it sitting in the car trailer in his office, and he had just decided to bring it home. While the umbrellas never made it to the warehouse, the chicken wire made it home. All right, that sounds good. Any questions you got for me, Scott? No. You've been, real good to me. You've been real fair. I appreciate it. Scott responded he asked not one question about Lacey or the police investigation. At some point tomorrow, this is going up to the chief. If they ask about the polygraph, Grogan started, we're gonna say that you didn't take the exam. We're not gonna say that you've been totally uncooperative, because that's neither true either. Right, Scott answered dryly. All right, and if I can get one of those cars back, it'll be a big help in finding Lacey. Okay, all right, thanks a lot. Thanks, Craig. It was about 5:30 p.m. on December 30th when Detective Grogan stepped into the private 90-minute debriefing at the headquarters. Only those officers closest to the investigation were invited to attend. The topic was a phone call that had come in on the Lacey Peterson tip line from a woman claiming that she was Scott Peterson's lover. Her name was Amber Fry. Now you see why I had to tell you guys this. Oh my gosh, I was so stressed out. Okay, bye.